And Nancy joins us now from Capitol Hill. Nancy, what struck you most about your interview with Senator Rand Paul?
Well, simply the fact, Elaine, that he seems determined to unveil a bill with a replacement for Obamacare this week. We all know what a complicated and massive piece of legislation the Affordable Care Act is. So the fact that he would actually be ready to present something to replace it as early as this week was pretty astounding. Now, obviously, we'll have to take a look at it and see how specific it really is and see if it addresses the various areas of health care that the Affordable Care Act does. But based on what he was saying in the interview, he does seem determined to address at least some of the major issues, including the fact that millions of Americans still don't have health insurance and that very often they can't afford it.
So he seems to be moving to a place of wanting a very quick replacement. But as you well know, not every Republican feels that there needs to be a replacement quite that fast. How does the senator get other GOP members to fall in line?
Well, first of all, it would help his cause a lot if he could really enlist the help of the president-elect. He said in that interview that he spoke to Mr. Trump and that Mr. Trump is on his side. But when Mr. Trump was asked about this at Trump Tower on Monday and was asked by reporters, hey, are you concerned that Congress might repeal the Obamacare law before it replaces it? He said, oh, I'm not worried about it. It'll all work out in the end. So that doesn't sound like a leader of the Republican Party putting a lot of pressure on his fellow Republicans to try to do what Rand Paul is proposing. And we've also seen the vice president-elect, Mike Pence, here on Capitol Hill, and he really hasn't been pushing that notion either. So it's really going to be up to Rand Paul, and with a small but growing number of Senate Republicans who believe for a variety of reasons that repealing without coming up with something to replace it or even having a replacement in the pipeline is a bad idea.
Well, Nancy, on another topic, we heard Senator Paul say he's confident that all of Mr. Trump's cabinet nominations will be approved. But for the viewers, which specific confirmation hearings are you going to be keeping your eye on and why?
You know, I'll be watching the first two hearings on Tuesday that are the nominee for Attorney General, Jeff Sessions, and then retired General John Kelly, who's the nominee for the Department of Homeland Security, mostly to see what kind of stance Democrats plan to take in these confirmation hearings. How combative do they plan to be? How hard are they going to go after these nominees? That's really going to kind of, I think, set the tone for the week. The reality is that Rand Paul is right. Republicans have 52 senators, and because of changes to the rules that Democrats made when they were in charge, you only need a simple majority, 51 senators, in order to confirm any single nominee. So assuming that all Republicans hang together, and I think barring a major flub by one of these nominees, that's what you would see happen. These nominees are pretty much in the clear, whether they get Democratic support or not.
Well, finally, Nancy, there are reports that while at the helm of Exxon, Secretary of State nominee Rex Tillerson cut deals with Iran, Syria, and Sudan. Those deals were conducted in 2003, 2004, and 2005. All three states were under U.S. sanctions as state sponsors of terrorism. How much could news like that, coupled with all the criticism Tillerson is already facing, impact his confirmation?
You know, he's got a very comfortable fallback position on questions like the one you just raised, which is that he's going to say, I was the leader of a large international organization, a big oil company. Of course, I'm going to do business with the states that produce oil and the states and the countries that produce oil. And if those are state sponsors of terrorism, well, it comes as no surprise to anyone that Sudan and Iran are producers of oil. And so what he's going to argue is that, look, I may not agree with what those countries do in other areas. I'm not a supporter of their governments. I am not friends with their leaders, but I'm a businessman, and I was making a business decision on behalf of my company. That is an argument that seems to have made a lot of Republicans who were initially leery of Mr. Tillerson a little more comfortable. And even Democrats say that some of their concerns have been allayed as well. So I assume that that's the tack he'll continue to take in his confirmation hearings.
All right, we'll watch to see how it all unfolds. Congressional correspondent Nancy Cordes on Capitol Hill. Nancy, thank you.
You're welcome, Elaine.